So we've just had our first price announcement for a next generation console, and this is for the Xbox Series S. The price is going to be either £249 or $299. That price is crazy low, and even though we all knew that Microsoft were going to release a more budget Xbox, I did not think for a second it would be that low. That is going to set a crazy competitive standard, and what I really like about this is, yes, there are going to be compromises. We know the GPU is likely going to be about 4 teraflops as opposed to the 12 teraflops on the Series X, but I just think for a moment back to when I was younger. Back in 2005, I would have been about 10 or 11, and I walked into a game store. Xbox 360 had come out, some games I was interested in playing, but I simply could not get one because my parents wouldn't buy something so expensive for me, so I was completely locked out of the 360. But now with something like this, the more hardcore gamers still have the option to buy the more expensive full next-gen experience. But if you're that younger gamer who has to go to their mum or their dad and say, look, can I get a next-gen console? Obviously you want the Xbox Series X, but the Xbox Series S is there as an opportunity to get into next gen a bit earlier than you otherwise would have done. So I think from that point of view, this is a fantastic thing. Also, from a point of view of if you're a PlayStation fan, this is also potentially very good news, because there is no way that this kind of low price can't put some kind of a pressure on the PlayStation 5 to reduce its price a little bit as well. You could of course make the argument that this will be weaker than either PlayStation 5 in terms of horsepower, but the mere existence of a Series S, weaker as it is still a next-gen console. Its sheer existence, I believe, will put some pressure on Sony, at least when it comes to its all-digital model, to really make that price competitive. And I don't see how they can get it to £249, to be honest. I don't see how they can get it that low. If they do, that's incredible, but I feel as if they can at least get it a bit closer because of this, because they have to. Because, again, going back to the younger gamer point of view, maybe you ask your mum for something for Christmas, she goes into the store, she's looking at all the new consoles that has come out, she doesn't know which one's better, she doesn't know which one to get, but she looks at the price, which anyone can understand, and say, well, this one's £249, and then this one's, let's say, £400 for the sake of argument. She's going to go with the lower price one. And it's those sorts of scenarios which are incredibly common. Like, as enthusiasts or as older gamers, we completely forget these kind of things exist, but they are what drive the really massive sales that you see with some of the cheaper consoles. And I also think it will be absolutely fascinating, I don't know if we'll ever have access to this information, but to see, after about a year, what is the market split going to be between the Xbox Series S and the Series X, because it will be very telling of what people care about in terms of power versus price. One additional benefit that the Series S has over the X is size. So the Series S is going to be 60% smaller than the Xbox Series X. And yes, that isn't the biggest advantage in the world, but you can definitely end up in situations where you have limited space underneath your TV. Maybe you've got multiple consoles and it really is a consideration how much space they take up. And furthermore, if you're the kind of person who likes to take your console to your friend's house, that's obviously much easier to do when the console is smaller and lighter. So there are real benefits of having a smaller console. It is, of course, important to recognise that this isn't a miracle device. There are compromises being made in order to reach such a low value, and I think there are 3 that really stand out to me. First of all, there is the GPU. The Xbox Series X will have a 12 teraflop GPU, the Series S will have a 4 teraflop GPU. It's going to be all digital, which means you won't be able to use physical discs with this Xbox, which isn't unprecedented. There's already an all-digital Xbox One, and of course there's the all-digital PlayStation 5. It's going to potentially have a 512GB SSD as opposed to 1TB SSD. Now, the more important thing is it's still an SSD, but it is going to be about half the capacity. That would make me a tad nervous. I mean, you can absolutely still use it to install games onto, but considering how big games are getting now, particularly from the likes of Rockstar and Modern Warfare 2019, 512 does seem to be a bit on the small side, but it's acceptable. And ultimately, considering the price of the console, it does sort of match up with what you would expect. So in a nutshell, great news all around. It's great news for Xbox gamers, of course, to have such a cheap entry into next generation, very accessible. And then also very good potentially for Sony fans, because I don't see how this won't put some form of pressure onto them to reduce the price of, if not the full PlayStation 5, then at least a discless version. As always, people, thanks very much for watching and see you next time.